Hello and welcome to Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. I'm Swebb,
And I'm Dad.
and we are the dad and daughter duo talking about all of our favorite sports moments from the week. I've got to be honest, there weren't many this week.
You could say that again.
Dad, what is this raggedy shirt that you're wearing?
It's a Knicks shirt. It's probably older than you are. And it looks like the Knicks have been playing so far this year. And the Jets have been playing and you know what I'm saying?
So you
Raggedy.
dug into the archives for that one.
Yeah.
It is. It hasn't been a great week for us in terms of our teams. I don't even know where you want to start because it's just been. Well, let's just get it out of the way. The Jets, no good. They lost 31-6 against the Arizona Cardinals. No need to go any further. The season is done for them. The guys have no heart. No one's taking accountability. Lots of players on Monday taking to Twitter to tweet to fans and make excuses for just terrible, terrible play. So the season is over. Okay. We're not even going to talk about Michigan because Michigan lost to Indiana. No real surprise. I don't think anyone was expecting for uh, Michigan to pull out the win there. Indiana's undefeated. The guys on game day, college game day, weren't even banking on Michigan. Desmond Howard was giving a sympathy vote to Michigan football on Saturday. Then we have the Miami Hurricanes. Gosh, Georgia Tech has been a thorn in my side for a good 20 years, okay? Every single time it seems like the Hurricanes are ranked high, Georgia Tech is there to just, stick a pin in the balloon and burst our bubble. The Canes had a chance to win that game at the end of the game, had to take a timeout because they thought there was going to be a fake, some sort of trick play during a punt. At the end of the day, it shouldn't get down to the last 2 minutes. They've been calling the Canes the cardiac Canes all season. I'd like a little less cardiac and a little bit more just normal playing really good football against teams that are not ranked and 4-4 on the season. Um, they also gave up 271 rushing yards in the game. Their defense has been porous. We've talked about that.
They're the kind of team that needs to score 35, 40, or 50 points a game to win. And
Right.
they didn't do that this week.
And you still got a good game out of Cam Ward, who threw for over 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. But at a certain point, the defense has to stop someone. This is what I was nervous about. Uh, as we were starting to think, I had a friend call me this week. She was talking about tickets to the college football playoffs. I looked into it. I said, "Whoa, you're getting excited. You're jumping the gun a little bit." She said, "I just can't help it. They look so good." Now look. So now they have one loss on the season. They went from number 5 team in the country to 12, and they've got 2 games to win to make it to the ACC championship game. If they can win these next 2 games, they're not against good opponents. They are taking on Wake Forest on Saturday and then Thanksgiving weekend Syracuse. Both of those teams are in the middle of the pack in the ACC, a very weak conference. But they need to win both of those games and then see who they play in the ACC championship, which right now looks like it could be SMU or Clemson. But it hasn't been a good week, a good weekend for us.
Yeah. It's just more than just one bad week, Swab. We got
Well,
major
let's
problems with this
we've got
team,
some
right?
problems.
With this team right here, they have major, major problems.
So now let's talk about it because we've covered football. Nothing else to say there. Um, the Knicks. Should we jump into it?
Jump in.
All right. So the Knicks are 4-5 on the season. They lose on Sunday to Indiana, to the Indiana Pacers in Indianapolis, 132 to 121, giving up 40 points in the fourth quarter. Indiana ended up going 21 for 46 behind the 3-point line, which is about 46%, 47% uh, efficiency. The Knicks don't have problems scoring points. they have problems stopping teams from scoring points.
Exactly. They a few weeks ago they beat Indiana by about 25, 30 points at Madison Square Garden. Indiana's best player, Hal Burton, did not score one single point. On Sunday, he scored 33 points.
He scored 35.
Oh, excuse me. Let me tell you something. This team has problems playing defense. That it goes back to that trade that they made, and they don't have much coming off the bench outside of McBride. That's the only guy that you can get some halfway consistent play from.
So the Knicks are 21st in the league in defensive rating. So they're the 21st best team, 21st ranked team in the NBA in defense. To put that in perspective, last year the Knicks were in the top 10. So, yes, they're having trouble scoring points. You're right. The trade, and you had some concerns about it. But at the end of the day, there's really two things that I'm seeing here. One, Carl Anthony Towns is not a huge defensive presence the way that a Mitch Robinson or even Isaiah Hartenstein are. That is not his game. But I'm not seeing great defense from guys like Mikal Bridges, guys that should and are known for having good defense. So that's concerning to me as I look at this team. They have no problem scoring points. That's great, but you got to be able to stop guys, particularly teams that you blew out by 20 plus points a week ago. Second thing that I'm seeing, which is even more concerning, is the Knicks played 8 guys and really 7 on Sunday. Jericho Sims and Deuce McBride coming off the bench. You really can't go with an man lineup in November. We're less than a month into the season, and Tibbs is only playing 8 guys, which isn't great. And Tyler Kolek, I think he played like 2 minutes on Sunday, and he's played pretty well. So here's the thing for me is you gotta let guys play. And I know that Tibbs, he's known to be a coach who doesn't like to go deep into his roster. We saw that towards the end of the season, obviously last year. But there were also some injuries there. And now there are some guys that are injured this season. But the Knicks have 4 games this week. They have 4 games next week. You can't play 8 guys in each one of those games and expect for them to be defensively tenacious, tenacious as Clyde likes to use, although I haven't seen too much of that. And you're just going to have guys that look tired. So that's also a big concern for me when I'm looking at the Knicks.
Yeah, and well, there's a slight ray of hope. The defense should get a little better when Mitchell Robinson comes back. Unfortunately, here we are, middle of November. He's scheduled to come back sometime in January. So
Yeah,
you
he's not coming
still
back for 2 months.
and because of the deals that they've made and their payroll roster, there's not much they can do to change the situation right now. And they're left with a lot of young kids on the bench that have no experience. That's why he's not playing these guys. And they gave away their depth when they get traded Randall and DiVincenzo, DiVincenzo,
DiVincenzo.
the big ragu. Let's just call him the big ragu.
He's been gone for 2 months and you can't remember his last name.
Listen, when you traded those guys, that weakened your bench because those guys, big ragu would have been coming off the bench. What's his name? And Hart would have been on the bench along with McBride, so that it had a similar bench that they had last year, and Randall would be starting, and he's playing pretty well in Minnesota as usual. Okay,
Well,
and then they're hurt a little bit with Ochoa not being able to play. He has a hamstring issue. He should be out back in a few weeks, hopefully. That will help a little bit, but he's not a whirlwind or some all-star player. They traded an all-star player.
but in terms of depth, okay, like Mitch Robinson is hurt and Isaiah Hartenstein went to another team. So I know that you don't like the trade, but the Knicks weren't really left with many options. And it wasn't Minnesota. There was no way that Minnesota was just going to give up Carl Anthony Towns for Julius Randle. So we traded away two guys. We get one back, but there was that guard, and we talked about this at the start of the season. The Knicks have guards, although only one of them played uh, yesterday and Sunday uh, from off the bench. But they were left with they were already going to be slim at the big man position because of Mitchell Robinson's injury.
That's true. But if it was me, I would have made a deal. I would have made a deal for a backup, just somebody that could rebound, that had some experience, could rebound and play a little bit of post defense. That's what I would have been looking for. And I would have kept the rest of my team intact until my injured big men come back. And I would have been in much better shape than what you're seeing here. Because they're playing in a lot of these close games. And then what happens at the end of these games? You have Brunson dribbling around, going one-on-one, and he's tired. Now he's played over 40 minutes in the game. He's exhausted. And now he's trying to score all by himself. Because you don't have Randall to help him out. You don't have the big Ragu to help him out. It's just the chemistry's all messed up.
Well, here's my question though. Why not play more guys right now? They don't have the experience. Who cares? You're a month into the season. Let guys play. Like
Because
how are you gonna get experience if you don't let them play? You
because
have no other options.
because inexperienced guys make dumb mistakes
Okay.
defensively. Some stuff that isn't even that the average fan doesn't even see. They don't close out on 3-point shooters.
Guess
All
what? The
this kind of
starters
stuff.
weren't closing out on 3-point shooters. When you
Yeah,
shoot 46 threes in a game, starters weren't closing out. They weren't fighting through screens. They were going under screens. So if the starters aren't doing it, what do you have to lose by having some extra guys come off the bench and play some minutes, particularly in the start of the second quarter or start of the third quarter? Uh, these are why not? You can't get experience without playing. And the reality is the Knicks have no other options. So what are you going to do? Play eight guys until Mitchell Robinson comes back? That's not realistic.
well,
They have
Choa
eight
should be back.
games. They have 8 games in the next 2 weeks. And they have a back-to-back this week. And
Ugh.
it's pretty much every other day they're playing. So you got to play guys regardless of what experience they have. You have no other option. Let some guy come off the bench and surprise you, or start to figure things out because he's getting some minutes in an NBA game and he's starting to come into his own.
Do you know how close we were to getting to the NBA Finals last year and winning? And now here we are back. We took like 10 steps back. We used to play a game on the sidewalk when I was a kid. Mother May I. You ever played? Have you ever heard of
Yes,
that game?
Dad, I know Mother May I.
Okay. Okay, a few steps forward. Oh, get back. And that seems like that's what happened here. Well, I'm going to get your brother. I've discussed all this with your brother. Okay, he played 4 years of college basketball. I'm going to get him on here one week, and he'll break all this down and explain to you exactly what happened and why that trade was a dopey trade and was destined to fail. Because we
So,
discussed
are
all this.
you doomsday for the rest of the season,
No,
or
here's the deal. The game has changed. Towns would be a great center if this was 1980 because all the good teams had guys like him. Okay? Big, burly guys, slow-footed guys that could back guys down. He shoots very well from three. He shoots perimeter shots well. I'll give him that. But he can't defend. The guys he's trying to defend, other teams are using guys that are 6'9", that are quick, and he can't defend those guys. It's no knock on him. He just physically can't do it. And it breaks your whole defense down. And he's not a great defender of the rim, blocking shots and all that stuff like a Mitchell Robinson is, and like a Hartenstein was. The Knicks lost two excellent defensive centers. Hartenstein, okay, left as a free agent. You couldn't do anything about it. You couldn't match the money. What are you going to do? And now Oklahoma City's got problems because Hartenstein's hurt, and they just lost their other big man last night with a fractured pelvis. So they're in big trouble.
There have been rumors about the Knicks potentially trying to trade for Giannis Antetokounmpo from the Milwaukee Bucks, a former NBA MVP. The Knicks this past week blew out Milwaukee when Milwaukee came to the Garden, and he was quite pissed at the lack of effort from some of his teammates coming to the Garden and losing by 30, 40 points. So, what are your thoughts on those potential rumors of
Yeah, I
getting
would take. I would
Giannis
take
for
him.
Cat?
I would. You think you could get him straight up for Towns?
I don't know if it's going to be straight up, but it sounds like there's additional moves that are being considered.
Well, listen. We're sitting here. The Knicks know everything we're discussing. The Knicks management knows everything we're discussing. They know this isn't working out. Okay. Hey, get me Randall back in here. He's going to be a free agent after this season. Next summer, get him back here. He liked it here. His family likes it here. You think he wants to be stuck in Minnesota with all that cold weather up there and stuff?
Well, what can the Knicks do to get better this season? I'm not worried about the off season yet. Okay, it's November, right? You can go on a hot streak here. There aren't many teams that are separating themselves. The Celtics are one of those teams that's separating themselves from the rest of the batch, but
They
they're four
can't
and
play
five right now.
defense. If you can't stop other teams from scoring, how are you supposed to? What can you do? They don't play defense. And they don't play defense at the end of games when you have to play defense. In that fourth quarter, you got to start locking teams down. They don't do it. Last year they did it. That's why they were so successful.
Is it a matter of effort or is it just physical incapabilities?
Because all their players, their starters, most of them are playing close to 40 minutes or over 40 minutes. These guys are human beings. They're exhausted by the time the last few minutes of the game comes. And you're going to say, okay, well, you got to play the guys on the bench. They're probably be blown out. See, this is why they gave up so much depth that when they had all that depth, when they went to the bench, those guys were capable of starters, so they didn't fall off. They had a major advantage over other teams when they went to the bench. Now they don't have an advantage. Their bench players are like every other team's bench players.
Here's the thing. It's a 9-game sample size, right? We don't actually know if some of these guys can come off the bench and give us some minutes in there to let these other guys rest. We have a 9-game sample size. So what it sounds to me is you're saying that the starters can't play defense because by the time the fourth quarter rolls around, they've played 30 minutes and they're exhausted. So it sounds to me like we got to let these guys play and figure out who we can keep and actually get into the rotation, particularly to either hold the score where it is or not, have there be too much of a difference. And then who will only come in when we're either getting blown out or we're blowing another team out.
The coach doesn't have patience for dopey mistakes from guys that do stuff.
You got
He
to
doesn't.
you got to play with the hand you're dealt. And he dealt himself this hand.
He didn't
He's
make these trades. He's not the general
he's
manager.
yeah, he did. It's not like he was caught by surprise. All right, he knew he knew what cards he had. He knew what cards the dealer had, and yes, as a coach, you have to okay those things.
Yeah,
So
but he got dealt a bunch of jokers.
basically, and like the first card in the pack that just says like the instructions of like here's your 52 card deck. That's what he got.
Oh man, Swebb, I got a headache, man. Jeez, this seems like it's gonna be a long winter.
You're right. So let's shift because the Knicks they've got some work to do. Um, there were some glimmers of hope this weekend, and no, I'm not talking about the New York Giants because they are also garbage. I'm talking about the UNC Tar Heels.
Yep.
Now, Friday night they went to Lawrence, Kansas. They played University of Kansas, the number one team in the country. They end up only losing that game uh what was
by
it, like
3 points.
by 3 points. Okay.
92-89, and they're up
Yes.
by 4 points with 3 minutes to go. They played a tremendous. They were down by 18. People that don't know college basketball, and Lawrence, Kansas, that arena they got there is an incredible home court advantage for. It's like Duke Cameron uh, Auditorium Stadium, except they have more seats in Kansas than the Duke Stadium, and the most hostile environment you could be in. They were down by 18. I thought they were just going to pack it in and lose by 50. They come all the way back to with 3-4 minutes to go in the game. They were up by 4. They played a tremendous game with a lot of young players and players that didn't have a lot of experience, and they almost pulled that game out. They look
So
real good, and they have a chance to have a real good team this year.
you normally don't like to use glimmer of hope when we're talking about a loss, but I'm with you. They were down by 18, getting blown out in the first half. Uh,
On the road in
on the
Kansas
road,
against the number one team in the country.
yes. Um, Carolina doesn't have size.
No.
When you were talking about depth, they don't have much depth either, and they're undersized. They're big men. They have 6'11", but he's like 180 pounds. Um,
Well, he's a
and
freshman. He's a freshman.
no, one of the Jalen,
Oh,
I think
right. Right.
Washington. He's like
Is he 6'11"?
6'11", and
Okay.
he's 190 pounds, soaking wet, and maybe with his hair grown out the way some of these players are rocking these days. But Kansas had a 7-2 center,
Experienced, fifth-year player.
right? And he was an all Big Ten player at, I believe it was Michigan.
Yep.
Um, they're the number one team in the country. I texted you very early in that game and I said, how does Carolina not have any big men? UNC, Chapel Hill, a perennial favorite, wasn't able to get some legitimate big men off the transfer portal. And, these are some of the pros and cons to NIL world that we're living in these days. Um, but what I liked is in that second half, they had nothing to lose at that point. I mean, I thought the game was going to be over early. Um, they come back, they storm back, they're leading a lot of that game. And I think what ends up happening, you're you're playing the number one team in the country, so you start to tighten up when you see that the wind is within your grasp. But I like what I'm seeing from Elliot Cadeau, who has been a great. He started as a freshman, great point guard, can really pass the ball. Um, Obviously, RJ Davis, he's going to be in those National Player of the Year conversations. Seth Trimble has improved tremendously. He's extremely athletic. He's hitting shots now. I think he had like 17 points on Friday, and that was his career high. And they have the one freshman with the long hair who's also the fro. He's a guard as well.
Oh, that's Ian Jackson, Captain Jack from the Bronx, Cardinal Hayes High
Yes.
School.
So, I saw some. I like to see some fight. That was nice. Seeing some fight in enemy territory. A tough game to play, second game of the season. They didn't come out in their first game at home, firing on all cylinders. Had a little bit of trouble in that season opener. So I I will take it because the weekend sucked otherwise for our teams.
If there was such a thing as a good loss, that was a good loss.
Very good loss. I think they can build on that. And we talked about this obviously off camera, but I want to see Carolina really push the ball the way that they have been known to do. You know, Enough of the dribbling, too much. Just pass the ball, move without the ball, um, and really just push the pace because they're undersized. When they play teams that maybe have a few big men but are a little bit slow, you can score quickly before that big man gets into position and is able to block your shot or, play good defense down in the block. So I'd like to see them do that a little bit more, and I'd like to see them raise the defensive intensity because you're losing a game 92-89. I think they gave up like 50 points in the first half, which is way too much in college basketball, in any sport, in any NBA or college basketball. But I'd like to see them raise that. If they're going to be a smaller team, you got to be quick on offense. You got to push the ball once you get those, those passes on a defensive rebound. Um, and you've got to play really tight defense.
That is the plan. That's what they plan to do this year. And every team that they play this year is not going to be as good as Kansas. So should be able to implement what they want to do a lot easier than they did in Kansas. And they still scored 89 points in that game, which is a lot for a college basketball game.
Right. And they were great at the free throw line. They took a bunch of foul shots. Now they'll go into these next couple of games playing some teams that they're supposed to beat. So I'd like to see them continue to get better, work on all of these things so that when they do start playing legitimate competition, they've got a few non-conference games against ranked opponents that are always really good. They'll go to Maui. They'll play at the Garden. Um, I'd
They
like
got
to see them
Alabama somewhere in there.
yeah, I'd like to see them improve over these next couple of weeks. So the next game will be against American for the Patriot League on I believe it's Friday,
Yeah, Friday.
which would have been nice if it was Bucknell back in the day, huh, Dad?
Bucknell went out to Kentucky last week, Lexington, and got pasted by about 30. Yeah, but that would have been good when your brother was there if we'd gone and played at Carolina. Who would I
Would you have worn Bucknell attire or UNC attire?
Who do you think I would have rooted for?
Carolina.
Right. But I would have hoped your brother had a good game, but I
Sure.
can't go against Carolina. I've been rooting for them since I was in seventh grade, Swebb.
And we know that you're quite elderly, so that's a long time. All right. So, Dad, you didn't say anything about my tree behind me.
What tree? I don't see it.
I have a Christmas tree here. You can't see it?
No.
Well,
Are
I'm
you
not.
kidding me?
Here's a picture of the tree, and I started to decorate, so it's pretty much all decorated. I always have to go back the next day after I've put up. I have a few more ornaments that I need to put on it. I like to go back after and rearrange some things so that everything's evenly placed. Um, and then I have a big bow that I got when I was out in Long Island with you this past weekend. Made sure that we stopped at home because I have a huge Christmas uh, collection. So I got a bow that I need to attach to the top of the tree. I have some garland to put on the stairs, and then we're ready to go. But I've been listening. I listened to Christmas music today in my office, um, burning the pine candle that I got. Someone got me a candle. I think one of the years that I've had a party, Christmas party, someone brought a candle for me. It's quite large, so that'll last me all season. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What are you looking forward to, Dad?
Wait a sec. It's not even Thanksgiving and you're already decorated. You got Christmas tree up already?
Yes. I
And you
have
had
been,
Christmas carols playing in the office?
yes. So
Oh, boy.
I looked back, and last year I decorated the tree around the same time, I like to the date. Uh, so the first second week of November has become the new time for me to put up the tree. Um, listen, when you're in college, you go home for Thanksgiving and then you come back after Thanksgiving and you've got like 2.5 weeks of finals and then you go home for a month. So it never made sense for us to decorate for 2.5 weeks. So we used to do it before Thanksgiving so that we could get maximum time with our Christmas decor. So that's how we would decorate the room and the apartment when I was in college. And I've just kept that going because I finally have a space that's big enough to have my own tree. So I'm able to do that. But it just adds a little bit of festivity, it brings some happiness. I've been watching some crappy uh, action on the playing surfaces, the field, the court, the pitch. Man City has lost 4 straight matches. Like, I needed something. I needed something. And so the Christmas tree is up. The pine candle will be burning shortly. And, what are you looking forward to?
I'm looking forward to some wins, Weber. I'm looking for some wins.
Well, the way that
Wins.
you've been talking, it seems like you're losing hope and you're not sure that the wins are going to come. Do you believe now the Knicks will play 4 games this week? Do you think that they can pull it out? They have
Uh,
Tuesday at Philly,
uh.
Wednesday versus Chicago, Friday and Sunday, Brooklyn back to back, both at the Garden.
And let me tell you something. That Brooklyn team is improved. Okay? So, I don't know. Listen, I'm looking forward to North Carolina on Friday night. That's what
Are
I'm
you
looking
ready
forward
turning the
to.
page to just college basketball season? You zipped through the NBA and it's just college basketball season
And,
for you
and I'm
now.
looking forward to the NFL draft in April.
Well, they don't have enough. The Jets don't have enough picks to draft a whole roster
Well,
because
I'm
they're
looking
gonna have to
forward to
clean
seeing who
out
they
quite
get
a bit.
in. Well, they might. I'm looking forward to see who they get in the first round, and maybe they'll trade some of these turkeys for some draft picks before the draft.
They might need to have an open tryout to see who has the most heart in the tri-state area because it's not
Maybe
good.
maybe I'll go down and try out.
You can't even be the place kicker, and you know that they don't have a good one. So, um, so would you like to leave us with a tip of the week?
Yeah. No matter how. You know what? My Instagram feed. I turned it on an hour ago, 2 hours ago, and
Okay, he's on Instagram, folks.
they had a Mickey Mantle thing that brings back such great memories. A Mickey Mantle 2 minute thing on his career and everything, pictures, action pictures. And I'm gonna see if I can find a Joe Namath picture from the Jets and a Walt Frazier and Willis Reed picture from the Knicks. And I'm looking forward to looking for stuff for that. Bring back happy days, Webb. Happy days.
Well, we could potentially get some happy days. They've said that Juan Soto is meeting with Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, and Hal Steinbrenner.
Yeah,
Uh,
they better get that wrapped up.
so we could have some good news. Let's hope.
He's also meeting with other teams.
He is meeting with other teams.
He just
Um,
spent a whole year here. What is there to meet about? How much do you want? Oh, you want X amount of dollars? Okay, yes or no? Take it or leave it. What is there? What are we doing here? He just spent a whole year here. He has family that lives in New York. He has Aaron. He had the best season of his career. He has Aaron Judge hitting behind him. He can't find an Aaron Judge on any other team he could possibly go to. What are we doing here? Why are you dragging this stuff out? Either you're going to stay or you're not going to stay. How much do you want? Tell the man how much you want to make. And he's either going to say yes or no. If he says yes, sign the paperwork and let's go. If he says no, move on to the next guy. What are
he's
you doing?
fired up, folks. He is
I can't
fired
take
up.
these guys. There's people out here that can't afford a dozen eggs. And these guys are, is he going to take a $500 million contract or is he going to take a $600 million contract or is somebody going to give him a $750 million contract? This is getting, I'm telling you, I speak to a lot of people get turned off with this stuff. And these quarterbacks in the NFL got to make $50 million. The next guy's got to make $60 million. I'm telling you, people are getting to, and I'm a capitalist. I think everybody should make as much money as they possibly can. But when you have the fans that can't even afford to take their kids to a game, and these guys are fighting over, well, I got to be the highest paid quarterback. I got to be the highest paid guy. This guy, that guy. The last guy made $400 million. I got to make $500 million. People are getting upset with this stuff. And it's only because the culture of this country is so sports addictive. That's the only reason why most people still watch this stuff. This stuff can't keep going. Now you got college players that are making millions of dollars. You got Michigan, my team, who they don't have a quarterback. Their quarterback situation is like they might as well put me in, okay? And they have the best quarterback, senior high school quarterback in the country is from the state of Michigan. He's already committed to Louisiana State University. But Michigan is trying to flip him and get him to stay home, and they're trying to put together a $10 million NIL deal to get him to stay and come to Michigan. If he comes to Michigan, turns the whole program around. But now we're talking about paying a 17-year-old high school kid $10 million to come to your college.
So fired up. He's banging the desk.
This is crazy, Swebb. This is nuts.
Listen, it's time for us to go because you need to take a break.
No, I don't want to go, Swebb. I don't want
to go. You need to breathe.
No, I can't. I've had it.
Hopefully we'll get some good news this week. Maybe a few wins. Maybe signing of a free agent. And if worse comes to worse, Dad, put some Christmas decorations up. It'll make you feel a lot happier.
That don't work for me, Swebb.
All right. Well, that concludes this week's episode of Dad and Swebb Talk Sports. Make sure to follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X. Subscribe on YouTube and Rumble at Dad and Swebb as well. And share this episode with a friend. We will see you next week.
So long.
Thank you for tuning into Dad and Swebb Talk Sports, the show where we cover all of our favorite sports moments from the past week. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and Rumble and follow us at Dad and Swebb on Instagram and X. See you next week.